They're saying that he passed that record, but that was in Saudi, so that doesn't count. It has to be in the U.S.
Oh yeah, the 50 person.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Did you tell him that straight away? He's like, no, by the way.
I haven't told them, but every time they make mention of Royal Rumble, I always say, Daniels, he has to pass the record here in the U.S.
And the one you won, obviously coming out second. Do you ever feel shortchanged that it's always it came out second, but second's the same as first, right?
Well, you whatever entry you have to look at it like you're lucky if you get number 30, but you might get tossed out as well. So, you always have to look at it like I'm coming in here and I'm coming here to win. No matter if I'm number 1 or I'm number 30. And that's the mentality that I set foot in that ring that day.
How much about that day do you remember?
I have flashbacks of certain moments of the match. I do recall that it bought me a lot of time. Anytime I can get away from action going on or guys getting thrown out, I would try to curl up and go underneath the bottom turnbuckle and stay close to the post. So you can call it strategy, you can call it knowledge from being in the ring for so many years, but it worked for me. It worked for me, and of course the last 2 opponents that I threw out were memorable for me. Randy and Triple H.
Yeah, it's certainly a compliment. When you look at it now and the legacy, Randy Orton obviously still active, and you've had your matches with recently as well. But Triple H, like the legacy that he had, and 14 years later, you still look at that and you think, oh wow, nice to be involved in those moments. Right?
Crazy, and if I'm not mistaken, Triple H was number 1, right?
I think so.
Yes, I believe Triple H was number 1, and I was number 2. So to be in there that long, and with the legends like Randy and Triple H was, there was moments towards the end that I felt like, it's just not gonna happen. Like very minor flashbacks of, man, what do I have to do? But at the end of the night, I was surprised that I was the last one in the ring. So, in such a big moment, you feed off of your fans, you feed off the excitement, you feed off the adrenaline that's happening in the arena that night, and all of that was to my favor.
How much do you remember the noise in that arena? Because the momentum was with you so much at that point in time, and obviously Triple H and Randy were massive villains at the time. So people were so behind you from the second you set foot in there.
It was historical for me personally. It was an opportunity that kind of fell in place with Eddie passing away. Shortly 2 months before that, actually a month and a half prior. Leading into the Rumble, there were so many mixed emotions, and I truly believe that the fans would see, and still to this day, Eddie's presence through me, somehow, some way, some form, and that really boosted up my morale, my intensity to make sure that this moment was the moment, for it to happen. So, like I said, it was a wave of just positivity that was on my side.
And the entrance coming out with the tribute to Eddie, the car. When did you find out about that?
The day of. It was so hard because still to this day, you could never surpass the feelings, the emotions that you feel for a lost brother. But at the same time, I asked myself, what would Eddie have wanted, and to keep his name alive? So that was definitely one of those moments where the name was still alive, his spirit was still there. He was probably cruising next to me in the lowrider when I came out to the arena, so it was such a good moment.
as good a moment as it was, and it was. I remember watching it as a fan and just being, just so invested in it. You just thought every single time, surely they're going to keep going with it, keep going with it. This is the moment, and then the payoff was there. Did you feel like an extra pressure because you had the EG armband on that whole WrestleMania run, with the Royal Rumble included? Did you feel an extra pressure to deliver to the name, or did you just feel so glad that you could hold that name with you for that moment?
I felt like I was being me. I don't think I've ever felt in a position where I don't feel like I'm doing what's best for me. But that moment was definitely, it was a non-pressure moment. It was a good moment. And again, I feed off my fans immensely. So to just be able to be representing Eddie, representing our style of lucha, which is lucha libre. It's incredible, man. Definitely the connection that needed to be there that night was there.
That connection you felt with everyone, you cared so much for him, clearly. Was it validating when you hear how much everyone else loved him and the fact that people got on board?
Yeah, I truly believe so. I hope that I met everyone's expectations for that night and moving forward, because that was just one phase of keeping the name of Eddie alive and his spirit, but you still had to go on to move to the bigger prize. That was just like, I just opened one door. Now I got to make sure both of them are open so I can just walk right in. And of course, that led into that.
Yeah, and so the build up to WrestleMania. The hard work is with the Royal Rumble, right? And then the next day it starts all over again.
Yeah. My adrenaline was still kicking the day after. I want to say it lasted for a couple days. Like, it was a moment that very surreal. Did this really happen? I mean, I was a kid. I grew up watching WWE, and the Royal Rumble was one of my favorite events of the year. It was the way to kick off the year. So it was very surreal for me to have become the winner and now moving on to a world championship match. Especially with my size, my weight, my heritage. There was so many things that I had to bring on board, on top of Eddie's name.
When you found out that this run was going to happen, did you feel like, because you've always been known as someone who's broken down barriers in terms of, like you say, your size and your style, and did you feel like that run was the start of the change for when the new styles came in? Because you look now, and any match you go in, you can see, right, that's Rey's influence, that's Eddie's influence, that's your generation of guys.
Yeah.
Did you realise at the time, wow, the style was going to change after this?
Not at the time, but throughout time, through my 4 years of WCW, and when I had the opportunity to enter WWE for the first time, I thought that was a big moment for wrestlers with my style of wrestling, with the same height and weight stature that I carry with me. I felt like that door was eventually finally broken. The mold is now, you don't have to be 6'5", 300 pounds. So that to me, that was a moment that, okay, now we just got to make sure we do work. And at the time, I don't think about this. Like, I don't think I got to make sure I pave the way for other guys like me to eventually have an opportunity. But now that I sit back and reflect on it and think about it, it's like, man, it's so good to have had a piece of this business, this sport, and to have influenced so many. That's a true blessing.
Especially at that time of year as well, when it's not just WWE fans or wrestling fans that are watching. Royal Rumble is something that every day, guy down the street has heard of.
Right.
Same with WrestleMania. And so you took the spotlight and you demonstrated this style. And all of that, while all these new eyes were looking,
Right.
and all of a sudden, did you notice, your status changing and how you were perceived in public and how many more people recognized you and everything like that?
Definitely, popularity really grew, and it just shows you how powerful television is. How powerful this sport and this brand is worldwide. I remember when I first wanted to become a wrestler, I wasn't like I wanted to go in the ring and perform for the fans. I wanted to get cheered and loved by the fans, and that eventually started coming within time. But again, these are things that happen throughout my life that I don't reflect on unless we're talking about it like now, and it just feels so good to have accomplished something and to have your name stamped behind WWE as a name that will last forever.
And the Royal Rumble, obviously, the big prize is the big match at WrestleMania, which you then won, had the the fabled WrestleMania moment.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time now, but
Yeah.
yours really was, wasn't it? And the moment the company pinned its prize possession on you and kind of made you the